Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Remarkable. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about something a little close to home for me. Something about getting that one foot in front of the other as into what it pertains to being homeless. Yeah, we're talking about being homeless this week.
Remarkable, 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 remarkable.
Well, I guess I'll start off by saying that my experience with being homeless is my personal experience, and I'm not speaking on anybody else's experiences. Just how I navigated my own situations, and I was 100% responsible for being homeless. I had a lot of things going on in my head back in the day. Very stubborn, very uh, confident in myself, thinking that what I thought, you know, that mattered. And I was homeless so many times that doesn't really, matter to count. But for me, it was four states that were really uh monumental for my journey, and self-discovery and figuring out who I am as a person. And that was, being homeless in Florida, Montana, and Tennessee. The fourth state was just in my head. I had the mentality that, well, I guess I'll start off by saying that, my experience with being homeless is my personal experience, and I'm not speaking on anybody else's experiences. Just how I navigated my own situations. And I was 100% responsible for being homeless. I had a lot of things going on in my head back in the day. Very stubborn, very confident in myself, thinking that what I thought, that mattered. And I was homeless so many times that doesn't really, matter to count. But for me, it was four states that were really uh monumental for my journey, and self-discovery and figuring out who I am as a person. And that was, being homeless in Florida, Montana, and Tennessee. The fourth state was just in my head. I had the mentality that I was okay with getting by with, the bare necessities, that I didn't need to achieve or reach for the stars or do anything that was going to take effort. I was just comfortable just riding by. And, like I was young thinking that too. I was like 20s, early 20s, uh, having just such a negative, pessimistic view of the world. Um, but the one thing I never lost was determination somehow. I was always determined first, to figure out what was going on in the social scenes. I was very much wanting to go and hang out. Uh, there were some bars around town where I grew up. Used to love hanging out with the people there. When I moved away to these other places, I moved for work most of the time, and I always wanted to get out and see what was going on. So like I was very determined in the sense that I didn't want to change my lifestyle. Like I'd go in, and during most of these times I was working 10, 12-hour day shifts, or 10, 12-hour shifts a day. And still going out, still hanging out, sleeping, 4 hours a night, waking up and going into work, and living my best life, but really couldn't really take advantage of that kind of life. Like uh I had my buddy Brian. He came and visited me and my girlfriend when I lived in Montana during one of these stints of being homeless. And I realized quickly, like he had come with his daughter, and he wasn't really trying to do a lot of sightseeing stuff for that one. But I realized I didn't have any way to go do these sightseeing things or take time off, from my job to go do it, um, because just my lifestyle wouldn't really account for me to be able to do that, to be able to miss the, work that I needed to do to keep up everything. Like that instance, I lived in a tent in Yellowstone National Forest, kind of illegally. So I'm sorry, National Forest, but I don't live there anymore. I I lived in a car. I think that was where I first started off my homeless adventures. Shoot, I've slept on a cardboard bed in a dog park, and come to find out that my my half brother was also sleeping in that same dog park on my cardboard mattress. We would take turns at this homeless shelter, and we didn't find out about this until like I don't know 8 years after this happened. We found each other and we're starting to talk and connected the dots, and we're like, holy cow, dude! So I found out homelessness runs in my family, which honestly, like I was adopted. I was raised and brought up by great people, very excellent, full-blooded Americans, great individuals. They were awesome foster parents to not only me, but when my father passed, I found out that they had about 500 kids go through their home. Um, so like when I say, I had a really good upbringing, like I believe it. I had really good people there to set examples for me. And one of those examples was uh, not drinking alcohol. And I didn't really understand that example while I was there. But my biological family, parents, come to find out, they had their own brushes with homelessness. So while I was down on myself and beating myself up, like, I was raised by, this caliber of person, and they expect me to be able to do all this that they can do and pay my bills and and keep a roof over my head. And I was feeling all this shame and doubt. And I use that as motivation to keep a job. I had never not I had while I was homeless, I it was very rare that I didn't have a job. And I base that on the work ethic that my adopted family instilled in me. um, but then when I found out that my biological parents had also experienced homelessness, and that it's really interesting to go off on a tangent. There's an article I read here recently about the potential for trauma to be passed on through sperm. And this is a new study, but I could kind of see the evidence in that if maybe my father's traumas of dealing with homelessness was passed on to me. I don't know, but um all I can say is I'm very grateful to now, be the last time I was homeless was 5 years ago when I moved to Nashville. Interesting enough, I am the weekend rock DJ at 1029 The Buzz, Mr. Saturday Night. But I have very humble beginnings here in this town. I moved up here, literally nothing more than a backpack and a little duffel bag on a Greyhound bus. You hear it. It's very generic, cliche almost. You hear all these big stars that come here, and had no aspirations to be a big star. I just wanted to get off to my next stop, and I dug in. I slept on the banks of the Cumberland River while I worked downtown. Um, I took advantage of, well, not advantage. I reached out to some coalitions, some organizations here in town that helped with people in need. And so I was able to get my needs met. Um, and that opened my eyes to, there's more needs to somebody surviving than just shelter, food, um, just the bare necessities that we think about when we think about what we can do to affect the homeless community. And those are things that I didn't really think about before, like community and, social awareness. And I ended up working in a nonprofit agency after I found stable living after going through recovery for alcohol abuse. Um, and working there really opened my eyes to that. Like I, I hadn't really fully comprehended what it meant to give back in a sense of sharing what you've learned and your experiences, and doing outreach with their uh, homeless population that they helped out. Uh, really, really allowed me to understand like the impact of what I had been through because I had just been traveling. nonstop. Better part of 10 years, and maybe lived in 3 houses, like, probably, like, couch-wise. Like, so, I kind of I had just stuffed it all into a box, as kind of things of like, I'll deal with this later. I never really unpacked it until started working with the the other people, like I was mentioning. Uh the main thing that got me through the most of it, though, was um my faith in God. Like, I'm not the kind that goes out and preaches from the rooftops, or just throws tracts in your face. I have a very personalized faith, and I would just pray, and cry, cry a lot to, a higher power that I thought was there and thought was listening. And it- coincidentally, come to find out through my recovery from alcohol, in the big book they talk about, latching on to a higher power, latching on to something that you believe can, you know, do the things that you feel like are impossible, and then reaching to achieve that. And in that practice, it really helped me learn that, you know, I can have dreams. Anybody can have dreams. And I know that they tell you all this as a child. And I think I was late, that day to kindergarten or something, but it just rewired everything, where I was like, you know what? I live in Nashville. Yeah, I used to work on the radio. Weirdly enough, I don't just have a face like this for any reason, but I I was like, dude, if I live here now, I was the only one that got me here. Like, it wasn't the best way of getting here, but I didn't want to make the worst of it either. Like, I decided, what's my next steps, and I knew it was going to be a long time. I moved up here. I was 29. Yep, I had just turned 29. So midlife crisis ish, basically. But I had no great aspirations of being a country music star, or a radio guy, or a rodeo dude, or any of the stereotypes I thought I had about Nashville when I moved up here. Because I honestly had no idea. I didn't even know there was a river here. Like, it was culture shock entirely for me. Um, but I had aspirations that I wanted to achieve something, and I was like, let's get back into music. This is Music City, right? I when I was younger used to run sound for big touring acts that would come through my small town. Um, did stand up, produced and organized shows, and uh, even further back than that, in college, I used to work on the college radio station up in good old Lynchburg, Virginia, at Liberty University for a while, and worked at a rock radio station back home in Gainesville, Florida. And I threw all those passions aside, um, and just never looked back. I never really, while I was, in my homelessness experiences, I wasn't stable. There wasn't a place into which I could be creative on the level that I needed to be, or stay focused on the work that, at this level you need to be focused to do. Um, so I really felt like I missed out on those opportunities, and maybe I didn't or wouldn't be able to achieve them. Um, so I started my aspirations. I set my sights low. I was like, this is a big booming capital of live music. And so I found a company where I could start building stages, and I love it. I loved it so much. I remember this one event. I worked 26 hours straight. I didn't see the sunlight. It was Valentine's Day, and good old Tyler Perry came through with one of his farewell tours. And I just remember that I didn't plan to do that event, and I don't think the managers planned for anybody to work that long either. Um, but I remember being in the middle of it, finding out that it was a potential, and immediately going and signing on, because in my head being like, dude, I slept in a tent with a bear outside for like weeks when I was in Yellowstone. I was like, I can handle 26 hours straight. We can do this. And yeah, I did. I crushed it. It was awesome. I loved that. I loved working there. Um, it was an amazing time. And, from there, I kept putting more steps to my dream. Next step was I checked in with Exit In. Exit In is one of the most historical rock venues, not only in Nashville, but in America. And, while I was there, I got a job at the most bottom level because I wanted to absorb it all. I I cleaned floors there on the weekends just because I loved it. I loved being around the atmosphere. I love being around the history. Like I found out Elton John, actually, that was the only place he could play when he would come through town originally. Most of the other places were only country venues, and so he had a very well he had an awesome relationship with the people at Exit In. um, and one day I heard that they were advertising a position on the radio, just to be a PA, a promotions assistant, going out, helping set up events. And, you know, I signed up. I did that. That's how I got to where I am now. But it didn't start with just, you know, opening my eyes one morning and saying, hey, here it goes. At least that's not how it started for me. And, you know, I think that's the important part. Homelessness was wild, man. I did a lot of things. I wouldn't say I regret much in my life, but there's things I did when I was homeless I regret. Uh, I don't know. The stubbornness for sure. You know, I wish that I had listened more, and I wish that I could have taken more criticism, especially because I built this little thing up in my head. I always wanted constructive criticism. I hated having just criticism as it was. Um, but you live, you learn. And at the end of the day, I mean, really, that's all we can do, right? One step after the other. I like to sign off every week on the show, the radio show. I love you guys. It's been a blast to hang out and rock out with you guys. As always, stay remarkable, and we'll tune in next week and rock out heavy. Thanks, guys. I've been Sean Mark. This has been Remarkable. Tune in next time. We'll have a brand new episode, brand new subject. Peace.
Remarkable, 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 remarkable.